Well, the Global Gender Gap Report 2020 released by the World Economic Forum places Nigeria in 128th position out of 153 countries in closing the gender gap. While there is a gradual closing of the gender gap in terms of labor force participation, this has yet to translate as expected to gender parity in the workplace. Although more women are now engaging in full-time formal work because of increased access to education, women still face a range of obstacles in the workplace which prevent them from realizing their full career potential. Now, these include wage parity, inadequate maternity leave, sexual harassment, and slow promotion to top managerial positions. Well, joining us now to look at the current situation of women in the Nigerian workplace and the obstacles preventing women from getting ahead in the workplace is a management consultant and founder, Exponential Hub, Mrs. Fire Williams. She's also a gender advocate. Yeah. Thank you for joining us, Mrs. Williams.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a long time.
Oh, yes, too long.
All right, let's begin by looking at gender inclusion in corporate world.
Okay.
Now, what statistics of women would you say are in the boardroom?
From the reports that I've gone through, I understand only about 14% of the 912 board positions we have in about 132 companies in the Nigerian Stock Exchange. It is really low. And the question is, are we saying that there are no capable women in Nigeria, that we don't have enough of them? And I dare say that the answer is that we do have capable women. It's just that the inclusion it's not being done. They're not being sought after, they're not being identified, and they're not being given that opportunity. Remember, inclusion is all about any act or state whereby you have equal opportunity to men and women, boys and girls. So we must have inclusion in all we do.
All right, so if you're talking about inclusion now, would you say that the women are not coming up? Are the women actually bringing themselves to the fore to show that they can actually do these things?
I think the women are coming out and the women are there, but they are not being selected. Okay, let's look at right from the top, the Federal Executive Council. We have 7 women out of 43. This is in spite of having an affirmative action declaration that in Nigeria we should have about 35% representation, which is still low, considering that a lot of the Nordic countries, they go for 50% and above, and Rwanda in Africa has 65%, representation. So we need to look at the number of women who have legislative seats, the number of women right at the top echelon, which is in the Federal Executive Council, and then coming down to the workplace. The story is a little bit, it changes a little bit further down. According to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, we have about 32%, of public workers being women, and in the federal government work, you have a bit higher, about 38%. But the truth is, there are women who are ready to take on those leadership positions, and they are not being encouraged and not being given the opportunity to do so.
So what do you think is the biggest, obstacle for gender equality in the workplace?
The biggest obstacle in my mind is the culture and the belief system. We had a very robust discussion on one of my networks this morning, whereby 40 solar entrepreneurs were being trained, and none of them was a woman. So we had 0 over 40. And the belief was that, women don't like to climb rooftops. And I tell you, we have women who are engineers. I have a picture on my Instagram handle of a woman on top of a tanker. So we do climb, for your information. And women are not as delicate as people think. In fact, women are strong, while I dare say men are more delicate.
We actually have a female engineer here.
Oh, exactly. Who climbs the mountain?
Yes.
And interestingly, I know there are some organizations who are very gender sensitive. For instance, here in Channels Television, we take women seriously.
I
it comes to the issue of maternity leave. the issue of even wages. I mean, most women here earn more than the men. And I mean, of course, there are quite a number of companies who also do
Oh,
this.
yes, there
and
are.
when you talk about sexual harassment, is a no-no here in channels television. As you can see,
Beautiful.
women are here.
No, we've
doing
taken over. We're actually
doing
taking
our
over.
thing. So, looking at this, how would you assess companies' commitment to gender diversity?
I must say companies are missing a whole lot. There has been a direct correlation between the number of women you have in your board and in management positions and actually the bottom line, or I would say the economic progress or success of a company. So when you lose out on putting women, you don't have that other balance, to whatever project you're looking at. And sometimes they miss out the details. There was a federal institution, a hospital in Nigeria where the pharmacy was forgotten. It had to be an outhouse. It was built as an annex. And if you'd had a woman on the board, I doubt it if that kind of mistake would have been made. So honestly, I would advise boards to ensure that they take advantage of having diversity by including women on their boards.
Well, some of the arguments put in, before this is the fact that some women have to find it difficult to balance family and work in these positions. So what would you say about that?
Women have been balancing family and work from time immemorial, since the time of Mungo Park. Honestly, they've been doing that since they went to farms and then to come back, to make food for their children and then still look after their husbands. So these are myths. They are cultural beliefs which must be broken down. And I dare say with people like Amina Mohammed as Deputy Secretary General in the UN, we have Mrs. Obi Ekwesizili, and, we have a whole lot of women who've done very well. We need to begin to dispel these myths that women cannot achieve balance. They can, they do, and they do better than the men.
Yeah, talking about women doing better than the men, I mean, while you were talking, my director was whispering to me, don't forget you have a female director here.
See, that is good. So you have a female on board, and I'm sure she's doing great things.
Very great.
Oh,
now,
yes.
let's talk about this World Bank report now that says that most countries still have laws that make it harder for women to work than the men. Would you say that this is evident in Nigeria? And what kind of legislation should we be looking at?
Honestly, this is playing out in Nigeria as well. I understand from my research that there is legislation about women not being allowed to work overnight. And in some manufacturing companies, you run shifts, and they feel that if the woman has not been in trenches along with the men, it will be difficult to promote her to supervisory level and then management. So some laws do work against us, but those that are coming up, for instance, I had the opportunity to review the Factories Act, which is like being a bill, being presented to the National Assembly now. And then after writing so many positions and organizations members should be drawn from, and then I see not more than one or two should be a woman. And I don't think it should be tokenism. We should have a rule right from ab initio that 35% minimum of members of each and every board in the public and private sector should be women. If we start from there, then we'll take it up.
Now, research has shown that there are more women in low-paying and low-productivity jobs globally, farming, petty traders, and formal sector activities. What's your take on that?
It's very true. And even on this program, I heard someone giving us the statistic of the 94 million people that are said to be living below the poverty line in Nigeria, which is very unfortunate. And over 70% of this statistic are women. So the face of poverty is like the face of a woman. And this is really affecting society. Women, peace, social justice, economic development and progress, they kind of work hand in hand. So if you have less empowerment of women, and then you'll find out that the economy is not growing as much as it should be, there's no peace and there's no security. So we need better empowerment of women all round.
So what role do labor laws actually play in correcting the issues of gender inequality in the workplace?
The roles that I think the laws play is to provide the opportunity. You see, so there should be labor laws that allow women to do their God-given caregiving roles. You know, Chimeze was talking about maternity leave. In some states, it's 3 months, some it's 6, some you have paternity, some you don't have. We need some kind of agreement, you know, so that we have a uniformity in that area. And then, in terms of opportunity, men and women should be given the same opportunity to travel, to work in various conditions, so provided the workplace is a defined, you know, place. You know, your workplace could be your car if you're a driver. So far the workplace is defined, we should have equal opportunity.
Now, what are the most sustainable and impactful pathways for women empowerment?
One of them, I would say, is education, because right now you find out the number of, in fact, let's start from access. You know, in many communities, we have women being denied access, girls, you know, and women being denied access to education because they're thought, oh, they're going to end up in their husband's house. But even with that, they have children to look after, they have financial decisions to make, they should be educated. So education in pursuit of SDG 4 is very, very important. And then opportunity, representation in government is key, because you need to have women in decision making. When you have women in decision making, there is a better pathway to economic development. And right now, we are not driving on all cylinders. We are leaving 50% of this population behind. We're not bringing them in. We're not taking their views, and we are not using their own skills. Women have intuition, they have good planning and coordination skills, and a lot of this have been left on the table.
All right, what about the government now? What do you think the government can do to promote women entrepreneurs and professionals?
The government should be the model. They should take the first step and be seen to do the right thing. So even with all the programs that are coming up, there should be better inclusion of women. For instance, I think I heard something about the NDDC board, and there are quite a lot of women. You know, you have the acting director general there being a woman, and then there's this forensic audit that's going to take place. Cecilia Kitonde and some few others are on that board. If government begins to put its foot down to ensure that there is good representation right from the top level, it will trickle down to corporate Nigeria and even to private enterprises, and there'll be better acceptance and involvement of women all around.
Now, do you think that marriage has got any role? You're smiling. Has marriage got any role to play in fortunes of women in the corporate world?
Somehow, yes. I would say yes and no. Sometimes it depends on the health of the relationship, because sometimes it can be seen that women are posing a threat if they're advancing, they're becoming high flyers. So I believe that this would have been sorted out right from the time a decision is made for a life partner, so that you sail in the ship of someone that you're going in the same direction. And with that kind of support, then the sky is the limit. But I must commend the men who've been very supportive to women. The president of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry right now is a woman. She has a very supportive spouse, and we've seen how far that has been able to take her. So we would like to, commend the men who are standing right beside their women and allowing them to go all the way to the top.
Okay, Mrs. Williams. Now, there have been numerous gender programs driven by first ladies at the federal and state levels in the past. Now, what has been the impact of all these activities?
Well, I can't say I've done an impact report, but starting from the time of Better Life for Rural Women to the Future Assured, which we have now, I think what this has done is to raise awareness. it has really helped to raise awareness to the plight of the woman, to what needs to be done, the kind of policies that women would appreciate, which would help us to move forward. So I would say that they have their place in raising to sensitize, the society to the need to consider the women better.
Okay, now, what is it like being a woman professional or entrepreneur in Nigeria? Is it exciting?
Well, according to the BBC, Nigeria has the highest percentage of female entrepreneurs in the world. As a country, we have about 40%, and that is really high. I would say it's exciting because you're able to step into a room and hold your own. You're able to contribute. You need to be able to take rejection, be able to take no for an answer. But at the end of the day, when your contributions are really evaluated and appreciated, you feel good. So it is exciting.
So how would you now assess the performance of women entrepreneurs in Nigeria?
I think women entrepreneurs could have done better if you had better policies with regards to things like access to finance. A bit of that is being corrected now because left, right, and center, you're hearing about gender-focused initiatives on funding and so on and so forth. So we would have done better, but the journey, the start line, there's been, the gun has gone off, and everybody is trying to, catch up, so to say. And I think the progress is quite remarkable. Even over the past 10 years, I would say we've made a whole lot more progress because I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years, and my very first access to finance story included bringing my mother from out of state to come and stand surety, taking her to the registrar and all that. But recently, the kind of access we've gotten has been a lot easier, than that. So I believe the women are beginning to hold their own and chart the path. Even in the innovation space, we have women in tech-enabled businesses. Someone is running Life Bank, providing oxygen and the much-needed blood to patients who need it. They're solving social problems and doing a great job at it.
All right, so what advice would you have for women who probably want to bring themselves out there, but they're just feeling, how do I go about it?
I think that the first piece of advice I'd have for them is to examine themselves, find out what makes them tick, what skills do they need to learn to equip themselves. And then secondly, they should join trade associations. We have a lot of women's association like the NECA's Network of Entrepreneurial Women, which I've been talking to Chimeze about, We have Innovation Support Network, of hubs. We have trade associations and professional associations that women can join, excel, volunteer for, they'll be seen, and then they can transit into higher positions.
All right.
Many thanks, Mrs. Fire Williams, management consultant, Exponential Hub, and gender advocate. Thanks for coming on the program this morning.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
All right, we'll do an opening call to the Nigerian Stock Exchange as well as the fixed income markets when we return in just a moment. Stay with us.